There are moments in life that change everything. Moments that begin with a glance, a word, or an unexpected opportunity. Ethan Cole, a man who had lost everything, never imagined that a chance encounter with Elon Musk on a chilly morning would become the turning point of his life. When you stand at the edge of despair, would you have the courage to seize an opportunity and rewrite your story? Ethan's journey, from being a forgotten man on the streets to becoming the inventor of a life-changing technological device, will keep you captivated. Join us in a deeply inspiring story about perseverance, the power of belief, and the resilience to overcome adversity. A story that will touch your heart. Opportunities are always there, but are you ready to seize them? Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow our channel to discover more uplifting stories like this. Let's begin the journey now. In the soft light of a chilly morning, the city of New Horizon appeared serene yet modern, a perfect blend of tranquility and progress. In a small corner of the Central Park, Ethan Cole, a gaunt man with weathered shoulders, quietly worked on repairing an old, worn-out electric scooter. His calloused hands moved skillfully, untangling wires and fixing connections with precision. The dirt-streaked clothes he wore and the deep lines etched into his face told a story of years of hardship. Yet, in his deep-set eyes, there was still a glimmer, a faint light of determination and passion. Around him, life carried on unabated. Laughter, the sound of children riding bikes, and the hum of sleek electric scooters filled the air. The world seemed to pass by the quiet corner where Ethan sat. No one stopped to notice him. No one saw the shadow of a man amid the vibrance of the city. Not far away, Elon Musk, renowned tech billionaire and visionary, was enjoying a rare moment of leisure. Clad in a simple long coat, he strolled along the stone-paved path, his gaze distant, as though searching for his next big idea. But suddenly, his steps halted. His eyes were drawn toward Ethan. There was something in the way this man worked, meticulous, focused, and brimming with passion, that caught his attention. Elon slowly walked closer, observing more intently. The electric scooter before Ethan was a relic, practically discarded by the world. Yet, under Ethan's hands, it seemed to come alive again. Elon's hands, accustomed to signing billion-dollar contracts, slipped into his coat pockets as he pondered the thoughts swirling in his mind. "What are you doing?" Elon asked, his voice gentle but filled with curiosity. Ethan looked up, his eyes reflecting surprise mixed with a hint of caution. "Just fixing this scooter," he replied, his voice rough, as though it had been a long time since he had spoken to anyone. Elon smiled, his gaze growing more focused. "This old scooter, why do you think it's worth fixing?" Ethan paused, his hands stilling as a distant look crossed his face. "Anything is worth fixing, if it can still work." The words were simple, but they carried a profound weight, resonating like an undeniable truth. Elon nodded slightly, sensing something deeper about this man. In that brief moment, there was a silent connection between them, a bond not of pity, but of mutual understanding and respect. Elon nodded slightly, sensing something far greater than what met the eye. In that fleeting moment, between a wealthy man and a homeless man, an invisible bond was formed, not one of pity, but of understanding. "Have you worked in this field before?" Elon asked, his voice low but filled with encouragement. Ethan lowered his head slightly, his eyes shimmering with a quiet sadness. "I used to be an engineer," he sighed, "but everything's different now." Elon stayed silent for a moment, as though deep in thought. Then he sat down beside Ethan, his eyes meeting Ethan's directly. "Do you want a chance to fix things?" he asked. "Not just this scooter, but everything." Ethan looked up, his eyes filled with doubt. "A chance?" he repeated, his voice trembling slightly, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Elon nodded again, his gaze glowing with determination. "Yes, I see something in you that most people don't, patience, skill, and passion. I want to know if you're willing to repair something far more challenging than this scooter." Ethan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. A flood of emotion surged within him, fear mixed with hope. It was a feeling he thought he had lost long ago. But Elon's gaze, full of trust and conviction, made it impossible for Ethan to look away. In that gaze, he didn't just see an opportunity. He saw the belief he had yearned for so many years. Ethan sat motionless on the wooden bench, staring at the man who had just made such an unexpected offer. "A chance," he repeated again, his rough voice carrying disbelief, as though he was afraid the words might vanish into the wind. Elon Musk, a man known for turning the impossible into reality, looked directly at Ethan, his expression unwavering. "Yes, I want to know if you have the courage to take on this challenge. I see in you the ability to transform small things into something extraordinary." Ethan remained silent, his calloused hands gripping the old screwdriver tightly. Deep inside, a surge of indistinct emotions began to rise, fear and hope intertwined. After years of surviving on the streets, he had taught himself not to expect anything, to avoid the sting of disappointment. But Elon's words carried no trace of pity. Instead, they were filled with trust, a trust Ethan thought he had long lost. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan asked, his voice laced with a mix of defiance and skepticism. Elon smiled gently, leaning forward slightly, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I want you to come to my lab. There's a piece of equipment that's been troubling my team for weeks. I want to see if you can do what they haven't been able to." Ethan blinked, his lips pressing together tightly. He could feel the weight of the offer pressing down on him. Part of him wanted to refuse, to avoid facing the possibility of failure again. But Elon's eyes, brimming with both challenge and hope, held him in place. The air between them grew still, filled only with hesitation and uncertainty. Yet, deep within, a small spark of hope began to flicker in Ethan's heart. "What if I mess it up?" Ethan asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, as if confessing his deepest fear. Elon burst into a warm and genuine laugh. "Everyone fails, Ethan. But what matters is that you dare to start. Your failure won't disappoint me. On the contrary, I believe it will teach me something new. Remember, you're not just a homeless man. You're an engineer. I can see it in the way you work." Those words, gentle yet profound, felt like a strong gust of wind blowing away the walls Ethan had built around himself. His eyes grew misty, but not from sadness. For the first time in years, he felt a spark, a glimmer of recognition and validation. "What if I succeed?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling slightly, but his eyes now held a flicker of determination. Elon nodded seriously, his eyes glowing with anticipation. "If you succeed, then we have much more to accomplish together. But first, try believing in yourself for once." Just a few hours later, Ethan stepped into a room he had never dared to dream of entering. Elon Musk's lab appeared like a futuristic landscape, with bright white lights reflecting off state-of-the-art equipment. The steady hum of machines filled the air, creating a symphony of innovation. Ethan paused at the doorway, his eyes scanning the vast space, a mixture of awe and apprehension swelling inside him. Elon stepped forward, leading Ethan past rows of advanced machinery. "Here," he said, stopping at a sleek drone on a workbench. "This is your challenge. It's designed to operate autonomously, but the navigation system has been malfunctioning. My team has tried countless solutions, but they haven't been able to fix it." Ethan stared at the drone, a familiar sensation stirring in his mind. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a sense of excitement, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. "Do you think you can fix it?" Elon asked, his voice calm but brimming with trust. Ethan nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "I don't know. he admitted. But this time, his voice carried no hesitation. But I'll try. Ethan stood before the workbench, where the drone lay motionless like a daunting challenge. The atmosphere in the lab grew still. Eyes from the surrounding engineers rested on him. Curious, yet skeptical. Ethan took a deep breath, then reached for the toolkit nearby. His hands trembled slightly, not out of nervousness, but from the weight of knowing this was more than a test of skill. It was a test of faith in himself. From a corner of the room, Elon watched quietly, his arms crossed. His gaze remained fixed on Ethan, not rushing him, not scrutinizing him. It was the patient gaze of someone who believed in what no one else dared to. Ethan leaned over the drone, his eyes focused on every detail. He unscrewed bolts and dismantled components, each movement slow and precise. When he reached the central circuit board, a complex maze of tangled wires and loose connections unfolded before him. "This is why it isn't working," Ethan murmured, almost to himself. His voice was quiet but clear enough for everyone in the room to hear. "What do you see?" Elon asked, stepping closer. "Design flaw," Ethan responded without lifting his eyes from the drone. "The navigation system and the sensors are out of sync. It's causing the entire system to malfunction when processing input data." Ethan got to work. His calloused hands, which had long been used to handling rough and basic materials, now moved with astonishing precision as they worked on the sophisticated components. He replaced a few connection wires, soldered the faulty contact points, and meticulously double-checked every parameter on the circuit board. The tension in the room grew palpable. Each movement of Ethan's hands seemed to make everyone hold their breath. Mixed with the anticipation was a faint sense of hope, as though they were witnessing a miracle in the making. After hours of effort, Ethan stood upright and wiped the sweat from his brow. The drone was now fully reassembled, every detail gleaming under the lab's bright lights. He glanced at Elon, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and apprehension. "I've done my best," Ethan said, his voice steady but calm. Elon gave a slight nod and gestured for Ethan to proceed. Leaning forward, Ethan pressed the power button on the drone. The room instantly fell silent, with only the faint beep of the machine breaking the stillness. The drone emitted a soft whir, and its motor began to hum. The rotors turned slowly at first, then gained momentum, spinning steadily and smoothly. For a few seconds, time seemed to stand still. Then, without warning, the drone lifted off the table, hovering in midair. It moved gracefully, executing programmed maneuvers with precision. A single clap broke the silence. Then, as if on cue, the room erupted into applause. Engineers around the lab couldn't hide their amazement. Their faces lit up with admiration and awe. Elon stepped closer to Ethan, his eyes shining with pride. "I told you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You're capable, Ethan, and this is just the beginning." Ethan stood motionless, his eyes welling up with tears. He couldn't believe it. Not just that he had completed the task, but the overwhelming feeling of being recognized and respected after years of living in obscurity. Lifting his head, Ethan shed the timid demeanor he had carried for so long. He looked at the hovering drone, then turned to survey the lab, his gaze finally resting on Elon. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse but filled with emotion. "Not just for giving me this chance, but for believing in me, something I thought I'd never feel again." Elon smiled, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "This isn't the end, Ethan. This is only the beginning of the greater things we're going to do together." Ethan walked out of the lab alongside Elon. The sky outside was painted in vibrant shades of orange as the sun set on the horizon. He stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt alive. His heart no longer bore the weight of past failures, but burned with a new flame ignited by trust and recognition. "So, what's next?" Ethan asked, his eyes now carrying a faint but resolute glow. Elon smiled, giving Ethan a gentle pat on the shoulder. We'll keep doing what you just did, fixing not just what's broken, but also the opportunities that have been overlooked. A week had passed since Ethan first stepped into Elon Musk's laboratory. The lab no longer felt like an unfamiliar space. The hum of machines, the glow of circuit boards under bright white lights, and the lively discussions among the team had become a familiar rhythm in his new life. Ethan no longer felt out of place. Instead, he felt a sense of belonging. For the first time in years, he had found a place he could call home. Each day, Ethan faced new challenges assigned by Elon. At first, they were small problems, but over time, they grew increasingly complex. Ethan not only solved them, but also left everyone astonished with his unique and creative approach. Long nights spent by the circuit boards saw his focused eyes and steady hands working swiftly, as if each component told him its story. One evening, Ethan paused and looked down at his hands. Hands once smeared with grease from repairing broken things on dusty streets. Now, they were meticulously handling advanced technologies. A faint smile appeared on his face. For the first time in years, he felt proud of himself. The lab was bathed in soft yellow light, creating a peaceful ambiance. Ethan sat at a large circuit board, his eyes intently following the tiny electric currents flowing through. In the stillness of the room, the only sound was the scratch of his pencil sketching on paper, a gentle rhythm that embodied life and focus. Elon entered the room, holding 2 cups of coffee, and broke the silence with a soft voice. "Working hard, I see," he said, setting 1 cup down in front of Ethan. Ethan nodded slightly, his eyes still fixed on the diagram. "I just don't want to let you down," he replied. Elon sat beside him, his gaze distant for a moment. "Ethan, you know," he began, "what makes me trust you isn't that you always succeed. It's that you don't give up, even when you fail." Ethan looked up, his eyes reflecting a mix of unease and gratitude. "I used to think failure was the end," he admitted, "but now I see it's just a detour." Elon chuckled softly and nodded in agreement. "Then be ready for another detour. I have a special project I want you to lead." The next day, Ethan was called into Elon's conference room. The expansive space, with glass walls offering a panoramic view of New Horizon, felt both imposing and inspiring. In front of him was a large blueprint depicting a device resembling a pair of headphones, but with a design far more intricate and advanced. Elon stood by the blueprint, his eyes alight with passion. "This is Project Lumina," he announced with pride. "A device capable of transforming thoughts into actions, a technology that will enable people with disabilities to communicate and interact with the world around them." Ethan froze, a surge of electricity seeming to course through his heart. "You want me to lead it?" he asked, his voice a mixture of astonishment and doubt. Elon nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I didn't choose you just for your skills. I chose you because you understand what it feels like to be overlooked, to be cast aside by society. You're not just an engineer, Ethan. You're someone who can create real change." In that moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over him. A mix of pride and responsibility caused his hands to tremble slightly. For the first time, he no longer doubted his worth. I'm not sure if I can do it," Ethan murmured, but the determination in his eyes had begun to shine brightly. Elon placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Trust me, just as I trust you. We're not just creating a device. We're bringing hope to millions of people." Project Lumina began, and Ethan poured all his time and energy into it. Sleepless nights, intricate circuit boards, and repeated failed experiments became an inseparable part of the journey. Yet, Ethan never gave up. Each failure reminded him of Elon's gaze and encouraging words. They weren't just motivation. They were the fire that kept him going. One night, after the team had left, Ethan sat alone in the lab. The first prototype of Lumina lay silent before him. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the power button. Instead of activating, The machine emitted a faint beep and went silent. Ethan sighed, running his hands over his face, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. In the quiet of the night, a wave of disappointment surged through him, but beneath it, a flicker of hope remained, a belief that each failure was bringing him closer to success. "Don't give up," he whispered to himself, closing his eyes as if to banish the weariness. Elon appeared at the door, the hallway light framing him like a supportive figure in a painting. "Ethan," he said gently yet firmly, "you don't have to do this alone. Let others help you. Success isn't achieved by one person. It's the result of trust and collaboration." Ethan looked up, his eyes clouded with fatigue. Then, a faint smile crossed his face. "Thank you, Elon," he said, and this time, he felt lighter. This wasn't just his journey anymore. It was a journey of unity and hope. As time passed, Project Lumina moved closer to completion. The team worked tirelessly, and Ethan, who once thought he had lost everything, now led and inspired others with his talent and perseverance. The final testing day arrived. In the large lab, the fully completed prototype of Lumina sat gleaming under the bright white lights. The room buzzed with anticipation, mingled with nervous energy. Ethan stood before the team, his expression calm, though deep inside, a fire of determination burned brightly. The first volunteer, Clara, a middle-aged woman who had lost her ability to speak after an accident, was invited to sit in the chair. Ethan carefully placed the Lumina device on her head, then leaned down to press the activation button. A tense silence fell over the room with everyone holding their breath. At first, nothing happened. Then, Clara furrowed her brows slightly, and her lips began to move. Her voice, weak but unmistakably clear, escaped her lips. "I can speak." The room erupted into applause and cheers. Tears of emotion streamed down the faces of many, and Ethan, standing there with misty eyes, could hardly believe the moment was real. Clara turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "You've given me back something I thought I'd never have again." In that moment, the room seemed to glow, not just with the light of the Lumina device, but with the light of humanity. A sense of happiness, pride, and gratitude radiated throughout the space, affirming that hope can always be reignited. Ethan stepped back, looking around the lab. The emotional faces, the unending applause, everything was a testament to the journey he had undertaken. He raised his head, his eyes now shining with confidence for the future. "We did it," he whispered. Under the dazzling stage lights, Ethan stepped up to the podium at the official launch of Lumina. Before him were hundreds of attendees, journalists, investors, and technology enthusiasts. Holding the microphone, his deep, warm voice resonated across the room. "Life isn't always fair. I once thought I had lost everything. My career, my family, even my faith in myself. But then, someone believed in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself. Lumina isn't just a device. It's a testament to the power of perseverance and hope. It represents a second chance that all of us deserve." Ethan paused, his eyes scanning the audience. For a moment, he saw his past self, lost, disheartened, and waiting for a glimmer of light. Remember, opportunities are always there, but you must be brave enough to seize them. I hope this story serves as a reminder that we can change the world, starting with believing in our own potential. As Ethan stepped off the stage, Elon Musk waited for him backstage. Placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder, Elon's eyes shone with pride. "You did it," Elon said softly. "This is just the beginning. What you've accomplished will change the lives of millions." Ethan turned to face the camera, a faint smile on his lips. His voice, deep and full of emotion, carried a powerful message. My story isn't just about a drone, a piece of technology, or even a second chance. It's about the power of belief, belief in yourself, and belief from those who see your potential. If this story has touched your heart, share it. Subscribe to our channel to spread more stories of inspiration like this. And remember, hope is always there. You just have to hold on. The screen gradually faded to black as these words appeared. Believe in yourself, for the light always awaits at the end of the road.